Alright guys, I made it to the house. I went in and got me a glass of water. Forgot to take any with me. Now, these are the hives I've got here at the house, and only the one sitting up on the table there. You got the long lang, and then right beside it, those two. That one there, and then the Apame hive, the one next to it. If there's any honey in either one of these two hives, them top boxes, we'll harvest that honey. But the rest of these hives I fed during the summer, trying to get them to build some more comb. This is only about my 5th year raising honeybees, and I'm still trying to build comb. I still don't ever have enough comb. Just come in here when it comes honey time, or the flow starts, just to be able to come here, set comb on top of my hive and have the honey, the bees fill them with honey and go. I'm still 5th year in, and I'm still trying to build comb up to get to that point. But anyhow, we're going to go through all these hives. If you'll notice too, I'm recording on my cell phone. I had to get another cell phone, second one in, well, since in a year's time, since trapping season last year. I got that iPhone wet. My niece was gracious enough to give me her old iPhone, and I used it up until it just completely quit working, and just got me a new one. So I'm going to record with this one for a little bit and see what the quality of the recording is on it. Wind's blowing a little bit, so that may mess with the sound a little bit. I apologize if it does. But anyway, let's get to it. We'll start down there on that long lane, go through it, see how they're doing, see if we need anything, and just work our way down. Guys, one thing worth noting too, difference between these two yards, and I think it's worth noting, is this yard, the hives in the afternoon sitting in the sunshine. That last yard we were at, they were already shaded for the day. So the evening time, that yard's shaded. That's mostly when I work my bees, is in the evenings, and that yard always seems to get a temper on them quicker than what this yard does. So that one hive, I mean, the longer we were in there messing with them, they started getting pretty mean, stinging, and I had to put on that jacket. I think that makes a big difference whether the sun's shining directly on the hives or not. If it's shaded, they seem to be more aggressive, whereas if it's sunny, they don't. Something else I'll note on this hive, last time we were in here, I haven't really ever had inner covers on here, and the bees are really building up in the top of it. But last time I was in here, I took some of these old plastic campaign signs, yard sale signs, realty signs that I've been collecting, and I just cut them down to fit on top of these frames, and that seemed to solve that problem. It's not real pretty, but it works. So you can use them as an inner cover, cut a hole in them if you needed to, or just to block off as a cover, and it seemed to work good. So we'll get in here and look at them. I did have these boards on here, but those bees, you can see them already coming up between them. They were able to come up between those boards and up into the top of the box, so that's why the boards weren't working, but adding the inner covers onto them made it work. We'll just peel that up a little bit and smoke them under it. I'll go ahead and pull this next one up. You can tell they've really propylized these gaps under here between these boards, so that tells me that they're getting ready for some cooler weather. Know it's coming, and they're starting to propylize those cracks and get ready for that cooler weather. So we'll just make some space right here on these end frames, pull one of them out, set it aside, so we're able to have room to work all these frames and look at them. All right, so there's the next first one that's up against the wall. We can see they've got some pollen stored in here, a lot of pollen. They've got some nectar stored here, and a little bit of a cap there in that top. And on this side, they've got it capped here, and then the rest of it's full of just nectar. So we're just going to take that frame and set it up here. Set it up here to make room. Go ahead and pull that first frame that's against that outside wall. Take a look at it. I got absolutely nothing in any of those cells. And this cell they've got capped with a little bit of nectar right in here they're working on, and those bottom cells are empty. So we're just going to set it up here. Set it up here as well, out of the way. Now we can just slide those frames over and take a look at them. This one's got a lot more weight to it. When I lifted it out of there, it's almost full of nectar. On this side, you can see that. Hopefully you can see that nectar shining down in those cells. And this side's completely full too. Part of it's capped there, and then it's completely full of nectar. And we're just gonna place it back down in there. Move over to this next frame. Again, guys, we know we're not going to harvest any honey out of this hive. We just want to take a look at it and make sure it's healthy and doing okay. Again, filling it with nectar, completely full of nectar. We should be getting into the brood nest here fairly quick, hopefully. Seem to be storing plenty of food sources. This is a really heavy frame, plumb full of nectar. Same thing here. You got a nectar to about right here, and then the bottom half of that's filled with pollen. I don't know if you guys can see that different colored pollen in the bottom of that frame. I built this box myself. You can buy these commercially made, really nice. I've seen several different styles, and the long wing hive. With me making it, the very first one I made, I could have done a lot of things different, but it works okay. This frame's got a lot of empty space in it. We're starting to get into the brood nest. You can see right down there that young larva. The older larva here, and then as we go out it gets smaller. So you can see that queen's pattern. She laid these first, and then she worked her way out laying eggs. And as we get farther out over here to this side, we're actually seeing little bitty larvae out here, and then some eggs on down in here. So the queen's doing good. We'll keep an eye out for her and see if we can spot her. This frame's almost completely packed over where she's laid on it, so we're into the brood nest now. So they're still coming up between those boards, and they propolised this this sign down to those boards. The hive beetle crawling around there. Same thing here, a lot of young larvae in the center, and we'll work our way out where she's laid. We're just looking for her as we go. We know she's doing her job, so we don't necessarily have to see her, but it's been a while since I laid eyes on a queen, so it'd be neat to show you guys too. And this side's just some older. They've already got capped over, pollen all out on the edges, some nectar capped up in the corners. So this hive's doing good on food resources to get through the winter. And there's another quick look for the queen on there, and I'm not seeing her. What we're going to do now, one thing too I like about these design is I can scoot these over. I'm gonna drop this one back down here on this outside edge. And then we're going to cover these frames back up. We're through working them, so we're just going to push everything to this end, and we're going to go ahead and cover them back up so we're not having to worry about these bees on this end while we work, not bothering them. So I'm just going to take and push all these frames to that outside edge. This one we've already taken a look at, so we're going to push it over. And we're going to take and we're going to cover this end back up. These sticks, if you're wondering what they are, they're just spacers to give that bee space here so those bees can crawl on the top of the frames between this top board and the top of the frame. So it's just giving the bees a little bit of crawl space to move between frames. We'll pull this next one out and look at it. Still in the brood nest, a lot of young larvae in this frame. You can see some capped. So as they're hatching, she's coming back around and laying in those cells. So that's what we want. Getting good coverage out of her, it looks like. Over here on this side, they've hatched, but she hasn't made it over here yet to lay in, so there's a good chance that queen is on this frame. So we're going to take an extra second and look it over, and she could be right here laying right now. Because this frame's got some young larvae. I can see some jelly down in there, so she's working on this frame right now, laying on it. I'm sure not seeing her yet. Sometimes they just pop out and there they are, and sometimes you search and search and search and never find them. But us knowing that she's in there doing her job, it's not necessary that we do find her. And I'm not seeing her, so we're going to go ahead and put this back down here. Maybe she's over here on one of these other frames we haven't got to yet. And I may regret saying it, but I haven't had any bees be aggressive toward me whatsoever yet. A pretty gentle hive here. A lot of, you see this frame, they've got all this cat brood. Over here in this corner, they've got a lot of pollen stored, bee bread. I'm going to take that pollen and digest it and make food that they feed the larvae as they're growing. And the bees eat it themselves. Just looking for that queen. I'm not seeing her on this side. Looks like these bees are hatching, and they've come in here and cleaned those cells out from where those bees hatched. The cells are real shiny on the bottom. They're cleaned out. They've got them ready for the queen to come back around and start laying in again. Doesn't look like she started on this frame, and I'm not seeing her. So we'll drop it back down in there. This next frame isn't fully drawn out, so it's one that we had put in the middle last time we were in here, hoping that they would get them to draw some comb out on it. Doesn't look like they've drawn much. And with the colder weather coming, we want those bees to be able to cluster in part of the hive, and then as they move, they'll move through the entire hive, consuming resources through the wintertime. And don't necessarily want a frame in the middle that has nothing on it. So if that's the case, I'll move this out to the outside edge here in a little bit. And they've come in here and drawn a little bit of new comb on it. There's not a whole lot left happening for the season, so they're not going to draw a whole lot more comb unless I just pour the feed to them. They've got this side full of nectar, so this will be honey here. So what we'll do, we'll move this to the outside edge here in a little while. We'll put that honey side in, and if they want to come in and expand and build more comb, they can, but I don't necessarily want that in the middle of my hive as they move. So looks like this next frame is going to be mostly honey. And that's what I did. I come in at this point, I checkerboarded, because that next frame there doesn't have anything on it either. So we're out of the brood nest now. This frame's completely honey, not completely capped. This side too, full of nectar there in the bottom. Few empty cells right at the bottom of it. It's not full yet. We'll drop it back down in there. And we're going to go ahead and cover up here. Cover this up here where we can. Now watch not wearing a suit, you'll get these bees on you. They're just crawling on you. They're not going to sting you, a young bee there. But if you happen to squeeze them in your arm or as you're moving around, then good possibility you might get stung. Put that one in there. This next frame, it doesn't look like it's got anything going on either side of it. And it doesn't. So we're going to completely move it out of there. Put it out at the end here in a little while. We'll go ahead and replace it. What was happening with this one? Okay, so this is that very first frame that was on the outside edge, and they've got this side pretty well covered. This side's empty, so we're going to drop it back down here. I believe they'll have enough time left in the season. They'll be able to use those cells, fill that. This next frame looks like it's going to be all nectar resources. Yep. You can see a bee. We can see one right there with her pollen basket full. There in the center. You got her head down in that cell. You guys picked her out yet? She's right here. You can see all that yellow on her legs there. She was down there cleaning that cell out, getting ready to put that pollen basket down in that cell. So I'm just going to continue working my way down to the end of this hive, go through the whole thing. So far this hive seems to be doing really well, and we're going to leave everything in here for them so they can use all the resources to get through winter, and then hopefully next year we'll be able to come in here and harvest honey off of them. Same thing here, they're starting to fill this with nectar. Same thing there. Another good thing I like about these hives, we're getting down to the end of it now, and you can store all your extra frames. So these frames are all just stored in this box, not being used. I like having that extra space, you know, store those frames. We're ready to use them. We just slide them over here, past our divider board. We've got this feeder in here, and we just move them over. Another frame that's not completely drawed out, but a lot of pollen stored. And what they do have there, drop it back down in there. This next frame's got some pollen, bee bread. They've already changed it over to bee bread in there. I want that bee bread close to the lot of it there. I want it close to the. I think what happened, I ended up taking that hive that died out and combined it with this one. So this is one of the frames that they had. For some reason I put it out here away from the all the eggs and everything where that bee bread will be used. So I'm going to move it over here closer to that area, that brood nest area. That's where these resources will be used at, in that brood nest area. So right there we're at the end of it. So I'm going to slide this frame with all that bee bread resources. Hopefully you guys can see all that in there. Just looks like diluted down pollen that they brought in. And we're going to slide it right next to that brood nest. We'll be able to use those resources for that brood nest. So we're going to slide all this over. This is all just nectar frames, food frames that they'll use as the weather gets colder. They'll start down here and they'll just shift their way all the way down this box. Now we're starting to get into some more frames, and they ain't got the comb all the way drawn out at the end. No resources really in that. So that's where we're going to slide this frame that's got. We're going to move out to the edge. We're going to slide it in right here. We just slide these over. We're going to go ahead and just take a look at the rest of these frames since we're in here. Looks like it's just going to be some of the same, just partially drawn comb. Storing a few resources in there. Maybe there'll be enough time left that they can fill those up. Probably what we'll do, since we've got these comb without resources in them, we'll go ahead and feed these bees. Alright guys, so when I got here earlier, this is the box that we harvested from that first yard, and I forgot to put a cover on top of it to keep those bees out of there. So alright guys, we created a situation. Lesson learned. I knew better when I got here to put a lid on that, but I got busy and forgot to throw a lid on those frames that we harvested from that other farm. And just the time it took us to go through that long Lang hive, those bees found that honey and they all started fighting over it. So I didn't get to record because I had to rush around and take care of business, but you can see all these bees from the different hives that are in here fighting each other over this honey. And there's still a little bit of comb and stuff in here. I'm just going to leave it here, let them finish cleaning this up. But basically what I did, I went and got my blower and blew them out of that, covered it, then they ended up finding holes in that top cover where it was bent a little bit and we're still able to get in there. So what I did, I basically pulled up here to the back door of the house and I blew frame by frame off, and we took it in the house, shut the door so the bees couldn't get to it. We'll walk back down here and look at the hives. We're done for the day. We're not going to finish going through any of them. We're going to let them calm down. Maybe later this afternoon, if I come out here and they've calmed down enough, I might try to go back in and finish going through these hives. But right now, when I noticed them on the back of the truck going out of it, I left the top off of this hive, and we've created a problem. We've created a robbing frenzy. So these hives are all robbing each other of honey. I don't know what to do besides just let them calm down on their own. Man, I guess we could probably close the entrances off. Let's see if we can make the entrances smaller so that those bees that are in the hive, there's not as big of a gap for those other bees to go in there. We'll close this one completely off here where they can't even get in this end anymore. So they just got that one little area down there where they can go in this hive. Close those entrances down for right now into a lot smaller condensed area. Well, there we go. So we closed that one down just to that small entrance. They've got a gap up here. We'll take some of these. Some of these weeds maybe shove in there, just close that gap off some. And they're even coming after me standing up there. So all these bees are in a territorial fighting mood right now. So I ain't got stung yet, but I got about 15 of them picking me and telling me they're getting ready to. All right, so we're just gonna do that to the rest of these hives, guys, and close those entrances down and see if they can't get this dispute worked out amongst themselves. I had to go put my suit back on to even get down here. Problem is, I've got those gaps in all those hives. On that top box, I've got a gap. I really need to drop that gap in all of them. And this top box here has got a gap in it until they're all going into there. So we're gonna try to put this inner cover back on, see if it'll help close that gap up some, keep them out of that honey super. Yeah, that should help there. Put this top back on. Just any gap that's in them now, they're gonna try to get that honey. They got that taste of that time, guys. So we just took that weed and tried to cover this gap up as much as we have. We had a hole right here, and I just shoved a leaf in that hole in that corner. We've got the entrance blocked down quite a bit there. This apame hive, we're going to close off this top entrance. Doesn't really seem to be a whole lot of robbing going on at this hive, but we're going to go ahead and drop this entrance reducer back down. All right, and that should help on the entrance of that hive, narrowing it down. Got a gap up here, stick gapping in there. We're gonna grab it out of there. Sorry, I had to replace the battery on the GoPro and I didn't put it back in the headband. Let's see if we can knock that stick out of there. They've got it propolized, so it's still a gap. We're just gonna take one of these little bushes, stems, and we're just gonna fill that gap around there for now. Maybe make it work temporary to get this robin under control. Same thing around this side here. We'll just grab another stem here off a piece of grass. I think it's already seems to be calming down some. that stem in there just to close that gap off. Alright, so we got this hive, all the holes in it taken care of. This one seems to be doing okay. They got a small grass, got it covered down here. Got a pretty good gap in this hive, so we'll go in here and see if we can knock that little shimmy we got out of there. We'll push it down. It's not going to close all the way, so we'll grab just some leaves, whatever we got. Some of this grass along the bottom, and we'll just shove that grass in this gap for now. Alright, so we've got that grass shoved in them gaps. Hopefully it'll keep the bees that don't belong to this hive out. The bees inside the hive will be able to protect it from the other ones. It's already calming down quite a bit. Doesn't really seem to be much fighting at the front of these hives. I'm going to leave it closed down to this small area on each one of them for now, and then I'll come back out this afternoon and open them back up so they can get a little bit of airflow. I think we may have figured that robin situation out, but anyway, the rest of these hives will have to wait till later this afternoon or another day, and we'll get back out here and we'll go after them, finish going through them. But guys, thanks for watching, and stay tuned to the next one. Alright guys, I ended up probably about 20 minutes after we did all that them hives, I ended up going back out, finished going through the ones here at the house. I ended up getting 4 medium frames of honey that we're going to harvest on top of that box of full frames that we already had from the first yard. Those bees had calmed down quite a bit, didn't have much trouble getting these 4 frames out. Then went through the rest of the hives, all of them are doing well. But anyway, just lesson learned. I guess we created a problem there and had to take care of it, but it worked out, and hopefully next time, same situation, we'll remember to do it the right way and not have to go through all this again. But again, like Mike Berry says in his bee videos, it's not, my way is necessarily not the right way, but it's the way that I do things. So it's not a how-to video, but a how I do video. I really like that saying of his. But anyway, guys, we're gonna get supper done and sit down and eat and get a shower and get cleaned up, and then come back in here this afternoon or later on tonight and get all the honey harvested out of here. All right, guys, here's the result, the end results of us gathering going in the hives today and getting the honey out. We've got the last little bit of honey draining through this. There's a little bit left here. There's going to be a little bit left in here. Let's see if we can tilt the rest of that out of there now. We'll just open that valve up there, tilt this thing over. Not going to be too much left in the bottom of that, but there's a little bit. Let's see if we can get any more out of it. There comes some draining out. We've almost got 2 of these small 2-gallon buckets full. This one over here, pretty full to the top. And then we'll finish draining the rest of this honey out into here. And I just got it propped up there so the screen's not resting in the bucket. Stand that back up. Show you what we got left here. This is all of our wax cappings. Been stirring them up tonight, and we're just gonna let this drain overnight down into this bottom tub. You can see we've got our honey that's come out of that wax capping here in the bottom of this tub. We'll let this sit overnight, finish draining, and that should be enough honey drain out of this wax that we can finish filling this bucket up pretty close to the top. So it'll be right at 4 gallons of honey that we got out of those hives, and we'll stick it back for the winter time to use it around here. We'll give some away to friends and family, and that's the end of that. So we've got to get back in those hives and put some mite strips in there, and or I'll probably end up gassing them with oxalic acid to do a treatment, and I may get some strips and do that too. But that's all that's left. We got them combined down today into smaller ones that needed to, and we'll get that treatment put in there and here next few days, and we'll tuck those hives away for the winter time and keep an eye on them through our cold weather, make sure they're doing okay, and then come next spring we'll start the cycle all over again, grow some bees, get some honey, and do it again. But anyway guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next video.